What's up YouTube, Dell here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you a spicy concoction for Regenesis Mekk-Knights. Now this idea is a massive shout out to Kyron, who kind of asked me to put this build together, and I was like, did they actually have any synergy? And then I was shocked when I remembered and actually looked at Purple Nightfall and Blue Sky that both of them have the 2500 stats required for the Regenesis synergy, even more so. What this allows you to do is it allows you to kind of flood the field with some powerful 2500 monsters at base, and then get a lot of searching, some forms of interaction, some forms of interruption as well, that can really kind of cause your opponent a lot of issues, because most people may start to know what Regenesis do, but then may have forgotten what the Mekk-Knights do, and it is really kind of cool to see the Mekk-Knights being utilised in this modern era. There are many different versions of Regenesis that I've been working on currently, and I will be bringing more of them for you. I'm also going to do a comprehensive guide over just what exactly Regenesis are and why they can synergize with so many different decks. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. So starting off with the Mekk-Knight cards, so we're going to be going off with triple Purple Nightfall. Now I'm actually glad, because if I remember correctly, Purple Nightfall and Blue Sky randomly got reprinted in, like, I believe it was the Track Trick Structure deck, because these were the two core cards that hadn't been printed, or had like two prints, the original in Extreme Forces and then a reprint in the Mega Packs of 2022, I believe, off the top of my head. But then of course they got common printing, so they're actually very cheap and easy to pick up. For those of you unfamiliar with how Mekk-Knights work, this was back in a time where columns was a massive thing. So if there are two or more cards that are in the same column, you get to special summon this card from the hand into that column. You can only special summon each Mekk-Knight technically once per turn that way. They have a quick effect. This one specifically has a quick effect to then target a Mekk-Knight monster you control and then banish it until the standby phase of your next turn. And if you do, you get to add a Mekk-Knight monster from your deck to the hand except itself. Then Blue Sky. Again, exact same kind of premise as if there are two or more cards in the column, you get to summon this card to the same column. But then if this card is normal or specialed from the hand, you get to add Mekk-Knight monsters with different names except itself from the deck to the hand, equal to the number of your opponent's cards in this card's column. Now, the way that this works is if they were to remove Blue Sky, it can't count the cards in the column, so we wouldn't get to add anything. You do play other Mekk-Knight names, and I do feel that there will be more Mekk-Knight cards that I might want to consider adding into this deck as I go further forward. So for the other Mekk-Knight targets, we do play the one Eclipse and the one Red Moon. Now, in more standard Mekk-Knight builds, you will play two Eclipse. In this one, I'm trialing out just the one, and I might regret that and need to go back to two, but that's something that I need to be testing to kind of fine-tune it. The Indigo is actually quite important because this one has the quick effect that you get to move, target a Mekk-Knight monster you control and then move that target to another of your main monster zones. The reason that is so important is there is a Mekk-Knight trap card that will allow you to negate the cards that are in, or negate the monster effects that are in the same column as a Mekk-Knight. So being able to kind of move that to another zone just allows you for your opponent to go normal summon, use the effect, and you go, okay, cool, chain Eclipse, move it to that zone, and then negate that column. Red is a little bit more aggressive, so this would be the one that I would consider sacrificing for a second Eclipse, just to kind of give you a bit more versatility, as this one is technically better. But this one is a bit of a spot removal, that you have the ability that once per turn, sadly not a quick effect, you get to banish a Mekk-Knight monster from your graveyard to then target a face-up monster in this card's column and destroy it. Then for your normal summon of the deck, and this is what's really good about the Regenesis, is that they have the ability to flex and play with any deck that does need to use a normal summon. So if you wanted to, you could play Invoked Regenesis, you can play Dogmatica Regenesis, and I'm talking about like the Ritual version. Even if you wanted to play like a very small Dogmatica package, you could do that as well. So your normal summon for this one will be the Yugioh, and the reason behind this one is this is the card that's going to allow you to start setting up your columns. It also gives your opponent a token. Now I know instantly that might not be the best of things, but the benefit of giving your opponent a token, especially if you want to play this as like, if your opponent tries to hoodwink you and make you go first, because that is going to be semi-weaker for the Mekk-Knight strategy in general. But giving your opponent token straight away shuts off evenly matched if they play it, shuts off Lightning Storm, and then also shuts off Imperm from that point on. So if they have Imperm, they have to use it on the Yugioh, and then that's when you kind of need to start adapting your plays. But the other benefit of being able to give your opponent a token and then you a token is you can turn your token into a Link Spider and then put it in the same column as the token you've given your opponent, and then straight away you've automatically put two cards in a column that allows you to summon down a Mekk-Knight turn 0. We are then playing the 1 World Legacy World Armor and the World Legacy Succession. Now you can actually play a range of different World Legacy cards. You've got Crown and I believe the other one off the top of my head, which I've completely forgotten, is Chalice. That's the one. So the reason you'd play different ones is Crown allows you to summon it from the hand to a zone a link monster points to, and then that gives you the ability to negate an effect. But you don't really want to be searching out your World Legacies. These are cards you're going to be sending from the deck to the grave with your Yugioh. Now, the benefit of sending Chalice is that on the next turn, you can banish it from the graveyard to then add a Mekk-Knight card, which can a World Legacy card, which can be quite useful for you. Whereas the armor is a little bit faster, depending on what you want to make. And the reason it's a bit faster is that you will go through your extra deck to get you into your Keyed Blade Master, which requires you to have a World Legacy in the graveyard, which in turn would search you out the World Legacy Succession. You'd activate the World Legacy Succession and bring back the armor. Now, the benefit of going down this route, so you go normal summon Yugioh, send the World Legacy armor, Yugioh's effect to spawn 2 tokens, turn the 1 token and the Yugioh on your field into the Lib. Lib would search you out the World Legacy Succession, activate the World Legacy Succession to bring back the World Armor. The World Armor on Special or Normal allows you to add a World Legacy card from the deck to the hand, so you can then choose to add, if you want to, your World Legacy Memory or the World Legacy Secrets. So this is your defensive card, which we'll talk about in a second, and this is the card that will let you extend your field. Now, the reason you'd go down that particular route is it gives you that extra monster on the field. It's very good for Lib going second, as if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard. You get to shuffle 1 card on the field into the deck as non-target, so it's very good spot removal for going second. But then on top of that as well, is it gives you the ability to go straight into like an SP Little Knight. So if you were to use Lib with your World Legacy armor to then go into an SP Little Knight, you then get a basically send off of the back of the Lib and then a banish off of the back of the SP, which can be very, very useful. So the World Legacy Memories is quite like the Regenesis Code. It's a quick play spell card, so the special one, a Mekk-Knight monster from the hand or deck in defense position, but you return it to the hand during the end phase. For the rest of this turn, after the card is resolved, you can't special summon monsters except Mekk-Knights, so you do need to be very, very careful when you activate this. You want to make sure that this is the last thing you activate on your plays, because it will lock you into Mekk-Knights, and you want to still be able to special summon your Regenesis. But the idea behind this one is that the card you summon, you're not going to leave on the field to the end phase. More times than not, you're either going to be summoning out your Purple Nightfall, so you can tag that out and then get you any of your other Mekk-Knights. The World Legacy Secrets is the negator, the column negator that I mentioned previously. So when it's activated, you get to target a level 5 or higher monster in your graveyard and special summon it, so it can actually bring back your Regenesis, which is really funny. But then when this card leaves the field, destroy that monster, and you negate any opponent's monster effects that activate in the same column as a Mekk-Knight monster you control. So that's where Indigo kind of comes in to allow you to move around, and the idea is you want to be ending your field with like a purple, a blue, and then an indigo, so you're shutting down 3 columns already, and then when they try to normal summon into one of the other columns that isn't occupied, you can then move your indigo across, and then you also have the ability to tag out your purple to get you more extension during the end phase, and you're pretty much just controlling your resource management. So that's it for the World Legacy / Mekk-Knight cards. Moving on to the Regenesis, we are on 3 Regenesis Archfiend. Reveal a 2500 attack or defense monster in the hand to special on this card, and on normal or special you get to add a Regenesis card from the deck or banishment to the hand except itself. And then the exact same with all the Regenesis monsters is if they are in the graveyard because they were sent there during your opponent's turn and specifically that turn only, they return to the hand. The 1 Sage, this is one that's kind of like, depending on the version you are playing, you may want to play 2 Sages. Honestly, I'm quite happy with 1 at this particular moment in time. The reason I'm not the biggest fan of 2 is that to get the most out of it, you'll technically be making it a 3-card combo. And what I mean by that is, for Sage to be useful for you, if you just opened up Sage, is you need a 2500 monster that you can get to the field to then summon down the Sage. And then for Sage to have its effect negation live, you need to have another Regenesis card. So you either need to have a Regenesis Archfiend that you can reveal the Sage, summon the Archfiend, search you out a Regenesis card, and then go from there. Or you need to have like a Mekk-Knight plus a Sage and then plus another Regenesis card. So it does require quite a few steps, and in the ideal scenario, these are the best 2 for you. But because you have so many different ways to recycle it from the banishment and the graveyard, the only time you ever lose a Regenesis card permanently is if it's banished face down. And the only card that you will be fearful of right now that does that will, of course, be like Kashtira Fenrir. The 1 Lord as your out-and-out aggressor, the 1 Warrior, and the 1 Dragon. So Warrior lets you tribute it to then target a monster your opponent controls and return it to the hand. Regenesis Dragon lets you tribute it to then target a spell track your opponent controls and then banish it. Lord can summon itself down by specifically banishing a monster with original 2500 attack and defense, so the only target you have right now is the Regenesis Archfiend. In doing so, you're then able to set a Regenesis card, which can be any of the cards I'm about to show you, but then it also gains 2500 during the battle phase, and then if it attacks a defense position monster, you get to do piercing battle damage. So the Regenesis cards that you can search out for this one will of course be Regenesis, which just allows you to add a Regenesis monster from the deck and add it to the hand or send it to the graveyard. If you control Regenesis, you can add a monster with 2500 attack and defense. I really wish it just said attack or defense, because then it means it could have become a generic searcher for anything, but it still forced you to play Regenesis to get that. And that's when you can start searching out your Purple Nightfall and your Blue Sky and everything else in between. But because it doesn't say that, the only card you're going to be searching for that secondary effect will be your Lord, but more times than not, you're going to be searching out your Regenesis monster. And then, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you get to banish it from the graveyard and then target a Regenesis monster in your graveyard and special summon it. Code, quite like the Mekk-Knight, but remember with the Mekk-Knight World Legacy, that locks you into Mekk-Knights for the rest of the turn. This one locks you out of the extra deck until the end of the next turn. But with the Mekk-Knights, you don't really care about locking yourself out of the extra deck that much, so you can play this earlier than the Mekk-Knight World Legacy Memories and still be able to present the field. So quick play, special summon a Regenesis from the deck, send it to the graveyard during your opponent's end phase, and to the end of the next turn, after this resolves, you can't special from the extra deck, and then during the main phase, if this card is in the graveyard, except the turn it was sent there, you get to banish it and target one of your banished Regenesis monsters and special summon it. So that's how you're going to be able to recycle your banished Regenesis. Very rare that's going to happen, because funnily enough, none of your Regenesis really fit the... apart from your Lord, which you can't summon back anyway, none of them really fit the Bestial kind of target lineup, and the Bestials are something else you could consider if you wanted to add those as a hand trap to the deck. Then the one, Regenesis Birth, I actually love this card. I really wish this one gets a foil upgrade in the future, but you send a Regenesis monster from the deck to the graveyard as cost and target a face-up monster your opponent controls. On resolution, you change it to face-down defense position. But then specifically only during your opponent's turn, you get to send this card to the graveyard to special summon as many Regenesis monsters as possible with different names from the hand, grave, and or banishment, but send them to the graveyard during the end phase. So the idea is, because you're doing that during your opponent's turn, whatever gets sent will just come back to the hand. You can only use one effect per turn and only once that turn. And then finally, moving on to the hand traps for this one, as we are predominantly wanting to go second, but still a great kind of card to help you go second will be your Moltomi Phlolos. Backed up by Ash Blossom and Infinite Impermanence. We are designed to be a bit more of an aggressive style deck, which is why our hand trap lineup is only going to be taking up like 25% of the entire deck. And that's kind of where you ideally want it to be, because you're playing such a heavy Mekk-Knight engine, you kind of want to flood your opponent's field or flood your field in general and just go out and out aggression. So it's like if they've left columns open, you summon down purple and they're like, right, okay, well if I try to interact with purple before purple tries to use this effect, then purple's just going to tag out and run away, and then that still opens up the door for your Regenesis to keep summoning down, and what you're trying to do is trade 1-for-1s as you go to then still work your way into any of your Regenesis casts and then go through. So your opponent will need to have technically like 6 interactions as they go, not including any of your hand traps should you have seen them, to then interact with you in a more kind of predominant manner. Now, there are some tech cards floating around that I really do like for the Regenesis deck in general. So stuff like Seal of Orichalco, so I'm already well aware of. I do know that people are considering the second Morganite that we got, the red one, which basically is a bit more aggressive. It allows you to, even at the sacrifice of not being able to activate monster effects from the hand, it allows all of your monsters to attack your opponent's monsters twice each battle phase. And then on top of that, it does double battle damage. So... The irony is that your Lord with that Morganite spell becomes like a double pierce, like 5k. If your opponent has 2 defenders with 0/0, you just go boom boom, and that's 10k damage. So, moving on to the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we are playing 2 Mekk-Knight of the Morning Star. So this is probably like your best extra deck monster, because a lot of people forget its secondary effect, which I'll talk to in a second. So this requires 2 monsters, including a Mekk-Knight monster. If it is link summoned, you get to discard a Mekk-Knight monster or a World Legacy card to then add a World Legacy card from the deck to the hand. So it's just more ways to get you access to the trap card, because once you have that trap card in rotation, that really can cause your opponent a lot of issues, and they will try and focus to get rid of it. You can only use this effect once per turn, and then once per turn, if your Mekk-Knight monster battles a monster in a different column than it, your monster cannot be destroyed by battle, and you take no battle damage. So the idea is, if your opponent's got a monster in another column, and they've got the same attack at like 25, you just go, cool, crash, but then my Mekk-Knight doesn't die, and you're good to keep rolling. We've then got 1 Lib the World Key Blade Master. So 2 monsters, so nice and generic, but it can only be link signed while you have a World Legacy card in your graveyard, because if that wasn't the case, this card would have been one of the most broken generic cards around, for the pure fact that during your main phase, you get to set a World Legacy spell or trap directly from the deck, so that will give you access to the World Legacy Succession, which is technically a Monster Reborn, but it cannot be activated the turn it is set unless you have a World Legacy monster in the graveyard, which you will do by the time you summon your Lib. And then if this link summon card is sent to the graveyard as link material, you get to shuffle 1 card on the field into the deck. And that's when you get to work into an SP and then get technically a double banish. For the other Mekk-Knight cards, we are on the 1 Supreme Spectrum, or Spectrum Supreme. It requires 2+ Mekk-Knight, so it will specifically require 3 Mekk-Knight monsters, but keep in mind you can also use Mekk-Knight of the Morningstar, counting as 2, and then 1 Mekk-Knight. So this card can attack directly, and if it is the only card in its column. If this card is in the extra monster zone, points to no monsters, it cannot be destroyed by card effect. Also, your opponent cannot target it with card effects. You get to send 1 other card you control in this card's column to the graveyard to special on a Mekk-Knight monster from the deck in defense position. You can only use the effect once per turn. And then generic Link Spider, so that you can turn technically your token you summon off of Gear Suit into an effect monster and then work your way into an SP Little Knight. But more times than not, you wouldn't need to really do that because you can just go into a Lib. Your IP Masquerena, so you can end your field with an IP leading into an SP, and sometimes you can actually go IP into IB, or if you have IB on the field, you can actually go IP, linking off with Lib, and the card that I love to go into that sticks within the Mekk-Knight lore is the Avramax, because then not only do you make Avramax nearly impossible to deal with, but then you also get to non-target shuffle, which is really cool. Then we have 3 Ultimate Slayer targets from your extra deck, from the side deck. So you've got your Synchro, XYZ, and Fusion, and then keeping in mind as well, you've got plenty of Link monsters, so you don't really need to clog the extra deck down with the Garura, unless you really, really want to. 1 Typhon just to kind of get you out of sticky situations. A Big Eye, very rare that it comes up, but when it does, it can be quite useful, because using Big Eye, steal one of your opponent's monsters, and then going to SP to clear another one off can be really important. And the last 2 cards can be 2 rank 8s of your choosing. The 2 that I've gone with is the 1 Dingirsu, the Orchest of the Evening Star, for that destruction protection and that non-target send. And then the 1 number 38 Hope Harbinger for that spell negate. You can, of course, consider your Buzz King to look at your opponent's extra deck. You can do a bit of burn damage. You can also consider looking at the number 90 Galaxy Lord for that monster negate. It really is up to you on what you fear the most. If you are fearful, like I feel the most fearful card you need to be worried about is Draw and Lockbird. But then if you play this correctly, and I've said this many a times in my previous Regenesis cards, yes, you sacrifice being locked out of the extra deck, but always activate the code where possible if you need to during the draw phase. Because when you do that, they can't draw you, and the idea would be is you'd go code, works its way into Archfiend. Archfiend would then work its way into Sage. So then the first play you make after you've made this chain of events during your main phase is you've got your Regenesis Archfiend on the field, you'd summon down the Sage, and then from that point on, that's when you start to use all of your search effects, because then if they do attempt to draw you, you can Sage negate it. Not that you really want to be using Sage on it, but if your hand is stuff like Purple Nightfall and Blue Sky, you want to make sure you resolve your searches as much as possible. And the benefit of something like that, yes, of course, your ideal starter would be your Gearsu with no other cards, but you have so many different cards that you can start with that allow you to kind of add more to it. So if you're not fearful of Droll, you can of course go Gearsu. Gearsu would send, and these are just like basic line combos, so Gearsu would send, wherever it may be, the World Legacy Armor. There we go. So that would send the armor. Your Gearsu would then spawn you a token on your field and a token on your opponent's field. You would then be able to use the token plus your Gearsu to work you into the Lib. Now we still haven't searched anything yet, so keep that in mind, we're in a good stead. This would then get you into the Lib. If you are massively, massively worried about Nibiru, during the main phase to set a World Legacy spell or trap, you not Nibiru, sorry, Draw and Lockbird, as my dog goes crazy, you would specifically set the World Legacy Secrets. If you're not fearful of Nibiru and you want to push it, I keep saying Nibiru, but if you're not fearful of Nibiru as well, you can also play around this. If you're not fearful of Droll, then you'd actually go for your Succession, activate the Succession, bring back your armor. Your first search would then search you out your secrets. So then even if you do get Drolled, you've still got secrets, and then you'll be able to link these off and move your plays further forward should you want to as well. So that's pretty much it for the entire profile. If you do have any questions at all, by all means, please put in the comments down below. I'll be more than happy to answer them. As I've mentioned, I'm going to try and bring you some more variants for this deck. I really am a big fan of decks like this, or just engines, or however you want to kind of call them. Like, to me, if a deck takes up 30 to 40% of a deck, that then declares that it should be allowed to be named part of the deck. So in this one, because we are playing about 40% of Regenesis cards, I'm quite happy calling it a Mekk-Knight Regenesis deck. Because if you look at it the other way, if you were to play like 3 Ghost Sisters, so if you went with Ash, Ogre, and Bell, for example, you're not going to start calling, or we don't see decks out there that play like 30% of hand traps. You don't see people calling it, oh look, this is my Regenesis hand trap deck, or this is my Regenesis Ghost Sister deck. So I feel that there might be like a mathematical percentage of how much dictates what is an engine, what is a deck. So, but yeah, anyway, what I'm trying to say is I love kind of elements of the game like this where they can be utilized in loads of different decks, because then what it does is it allows you to be a bit more creative. It allows you to bring some decks that you might not have played for a long time back to the forefront, or it just allows you to be creative so that you don't get bored and stale of the same build. And then the other benefit of something like this is when an engine or a deck or anything like Regenesis kind of goes under the radar a little bit, they're kind of more immune for future interactions from the Forbidden and Limited list. So it gives you that ability to kind of be a bit more free with what you're trying to build, and you don't worry about losing any investment or like burning money, because you'll always still have that ability to be creative and adapt the engines that you play and adapt the other decks that you merge them with, and it just kind of becomes a lot more fun, in my opinion. And I feel that's what Yu-Gi-Oh really is the creative aspect behind it, as well as the competitive nature. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.